All right, clearly I had way more fun with that than I anticipated. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that. I love you, Carter. I'm afraid, honestly, I'm afraid for him to hear that and come back like, "I hate you now." Let's just get to the comments. I asked everybody to send me voice notes. We're gonna run this like a radio show. So welcome to Sleepers Live. Let's take some callers, shall we?
Travis Nelson. Hey, Greg, thanks for giving us a chance to do this time. I appreciate it. And I wanted to take this time to say my MSU fan and where it stems from. Obviously, my UP roots, I've said about, I grew up about an hour and a half away from Tom Izzo's Iron Mountain. And in 1973, my dad's high school team, where I went to high school, they beat Tom Izzo and Steve Mariucci led Iron Mountain for the regional title. And somewhere back home, he has a picture of them celebrating, and Izzo pissed in the background that he signed for my dad. So that's what we have in our house. It's special. And they went to school together at Northern Michigan in college, and they've been friends ever since. And that is how I got my Michigan State fandom. Didn't know when else I get a chance to tell the story. Haven't said it in the Discord or anything, so I took the chance now. Thank you, Greg, once again.
First of all, it's a great story. Thank you for the comment or the call in, Travis. Yeah, I always knew that Tom Izzo didn't have that dog in him, though. I mean, can we be honest? Like losing a regional final, you're Tom Izzo with Steve Mary, you lost in the regional final. But it is interesting how like everybody has their own personal stories of how you become a fan of things. Like everybody has a different reason, and all of these reasons are equally strong. Like my reasons make no sense on paper. Why I love John Beeline, why I love Mark D'Antonio, but don't like the other coaches. Like I don't know. That's always been an interesting element of it to me. But Travis, great to hear from you, my friend. Appreciate you always being in the Discord. Let's get to the next caller here.
Hey, this is Houston Sleepwalker. Astros currently up 5-0. Go Stros. We were trying to make the Discord a little bit of money tonight. The first question is, how did you and Cart meet? I feel like you guys were frenemies at first and became best friends and coworkers. Here's how that dynamic is. Secondly, it's just your monthly reminder that you still owe me a beer. You're 0-1 against me on bets, even though you say you're the best bettor ever when it comes to personal bets. The bet was that Jaden Akins, Hogard, and Walker would all still be on the team this year. So just that monthly reminder for you. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, Matt, you're right. Matt's 1-0 against me. I think he's the only person on earth that is 1-0 against me in personal bets. I got to meet Matt in Houston last year, and we were down there for the Final Four. And first of all, awesome guy. He brought his wife along. We had a nice little like 2-hour stretch at the table in the middle of all the field of 68 shows. And yeah, it's fun. That's the coolest part of doing any of this stuff is like now I get to meet people who have shared mutual interest. And every time I meet anybody who's like, oh, I've seen your show or I've watched you on After Dark or I listen to Sleepers, it's just the coolest feeling. I definitely owe Matt a beer. I owe you more than a beer. I'm going to buy like a whole day's worth of drinks the next time I see you. But I am going to get you back though, because you can claim that you got the win, which you did with the 3 Michigan State guys coming back. I'm confident I'll get you back on the next one. In fact, I'd like to propose that Jaden Akins never plays a minute in the NBA. I'd like to propose that as my next bet. How did Carter and I meet? I kind of alluded to this in the roast, but specifically one night it was at a New Year's Eve party. But the bigger story is that Carter played college basketball at Albion with one of my best friends who I went to high school with, Zach Hirth. Zach was his point guard. They were the same class. They were just like instantly best friends. It's kind of one of those things where like, you know, if you go to a different college than your best friends, you kind of just like mutually see the relationships they're building in college. And by default, you'll build your own relationships with those people, even if it starts out virtually. That's how it was. Like I could just tell Carter was this magnetic, hilarious human based off what I was seeing him do with Zach while I was having my own experience at Michigan State. And then Zach would bring Carter to East Lansing quite a bit. I'm sure we even like crossed paths before the New Year's Eve party, but that party was like, we left that night and I literally remember telling my wife, like, I will fail in my life if Carter Elliott's not in my wedding party. And it was like a very creepy thing for me to say about someone brand new that I had just met. But really we hit it off that well. Like you could just tell, like we wanted to sit in the corner and take shots while trying to name which college every NBA player went to and try to trip each other up, and the competitive juices were flowing. I'd never met anybody who was wired the same way I was like that. So as you can see, there's a lot of chemistry between Cart and I. Thank you very much, Matt F., for the call in. Sliding down here, I also really hope that I don't miss anybody's comments here. I'm just keeping an eye on the Discord as best I can, but no promises. Here's one.
Hey, Greg, it's Coy. First time, long time. Got a simple question here. If you could pick one game in the out-of-conference slate to go to with Carter as part of Sleepers, where would you go?
It's a great question. Also, first of all, you're not kidding when you say first time, long time, but it is a great bit. I was hoping that many people would do the first time, long time bit for this. So I think my big qualification here would be I want this to be somewhere we haven't been to yet. And my original thought would be getting out west, maybe one of these like Big Ten schools that are coming to the Big Ten from California. But I don't really want to see UCLA or USC basketball this year, even though I should want to see USC. So I stumbled into this one. I want to go to Cameron Indoor, and I want to see Arizona Duke. I think that would be really fun. Being there for the Caleb Love return in a different uniform against the program he helped expel the greatest coach of all time to, like, that's going to be a moment, whether Caleb Love's fantastic, whether he barely plays, and two programs that are obviously loaded this year. Arizona's going to be really good. Duke's one of the best teams in the country. So that's my answer. I heard it's really hard to get tickets to Cameron Indoor, though. Like, Riley Davis of Riley Friday fame says he can barely ever get media credentials, and maybe that's the North Carolina Duke rivalry, though. Let's take another call here. This one was sent a different way than the others.
Yo, Greg, what's up? It's Daniel Greer here. First time, long time. I had to call in and talk to you about Carter's Community Center Basketball League. Like, I have two issues. One, did he have to get the commissioner exemption to be the only player that's over 5'5" in this entire league? Like, dude is a monster out there among these little people. Like, what is happening? There's nobody that even comes up to his chin, and he's dominating with his videos and his voiceover work. All right, but that's not my biggest issue. My biggest issue is the fact that there is just a lack of wiggle. Like, who is this guy now? He's turning into Frank Kaminsky out there. Like, he's not even close to Shakira. With the hips don't lie. Shakira.
It's one of the greatest things I've ever heard. I could listen to Daniel Greer talk all day long, for the record. He has a great podcast himself for the Memphis Grizzlies, Locked On Grizz. Highly recommend anybody listen to it. But first of all, put some respect on Frank Kaminsky's wiggle for me, okay? Like, Frank had wiggle. That's a bad comp if we're trying to say Cart doesn't have wiggle. And I do think Cart has a little wiggle. His foot speed is definitely getting a little slower. The jumping has never really been there from what I've seen, but that's not a strong point right now. But the man has some moves. Like, you give him the ball, get out of the way in the post. Like, he will score. He will make something happen. Travion Williams-esque, I would say. Good footwork, even if not good foot speed. But you're right. I mean, he's like way bigger than everybody else in that league. But I think that says more about how big Carter is. I think a lot of these people that look like they're 5'5" in these videos are actually like 5'11", 6 foot, but Cart's just huge. So it is what it is. Thank you for the call, Daniel. Let's get to another one here.
All right, so you're pretty good at Greg. So I wanted to ask you, if you and Carter were two of the starters, what three other Big Ten players from the last 10 years would have to be in the starting lineup for you guys to make a Final Four?
Well, that's such a great question. Something happened to the audio on the front end of that, by the way, but that was from Craig. I mean, God, it's such a good question. It would have to be like three of the best players in the league in that span. And even if we had them, like, I'm probably enough of a liability to not get there. I weirdly think you could get there with Carter, and if you subbed his Albion teammate Zach in, like, Zach's in great shape and it was a great point guard. I weirdly think the two of them with like 3 National Player of the Years would work. But for the sake of the exercise, we need a legit center. I'm going to say we'll take Zach Edey. I mean, I just think he's been the best center defensive anchor, he would work. From there, we obviously need athleticism. Like, we have nobody to guard the perimeter whatsoever. So I'm going to take the best perimeter defender I can think of, which is Victor Oladipo. And man, I don't mean to avoid Michigan State guys here, but I think like the one missing thing, if we have me, Carter, Oladipo, Edey, we obviously need to do it all point guard. And I'm not going to pick anybody but Trey Burke. I'm just not. Trey's a guy we could give him the ball, get out of the way. I think we'd be fine. I actually like that team. I could spot up in the corner. I could hit threes at a Fletcher Lawyer rate for sure. And Carter probably loves that lineup because with Edey there, he doesn't have to do any of the big man stuff he hates doing. So he can be stretch four. But yeah, I don't think we'd make the tournament even. I'm too much of a liability at this point. Thank you for the call though, Craig. Another one coming.
Hello, sleepers. I got a question for Greg today. A lot of good games to look forward to this season, but what are some matchups you wish we were seeing this year, whether in the tournament or in the regular season? Doesn't matter. See ya.
It's a fun one. I keep naming Arizona in a lot of these, but I really want to see Tommy Lloyd against Gonzaga while Mark Few is still there. And I don't know when that's going to happen. But that's no doubt one that I would absolutely love to see. I'm bummed that Kansas is playing Kentucky in the Champions Classic because I want to see Kansas play Duke or Michigan State. Like, I think those three are clearly the top four teams in the country. And, Michigan State, Duke is great. Like, I wouldn't want to take that away. I just wish we could see Kansas against, like, Hunter Dickinson against Michigan State would be fantastic. And the only way we're going to get that is in the NCAA tournament. So those are the two that immediately come to mind. There's a lot of really good games this year, though. Like, I don't have too many complaints about things that we're missing with all the preseason tournaments, like Maui Invitational and everything. Even the Battle for Atlantis, I'm pretty excited about. So good question, Jay Meisner. Thank you. Another one coming here.
Hey, Greg, it's Keith Johnson, 32. I need to know, what is your top 5 in the AP poll at the end of the non-conference? Because we have an absolute stacked Maui Invitational, including 3 of the top 5 in Kansas, Purdue, and Marquette, plus Tennessee, Gonzaga, Creighton, your boys are there too. So who's going to make it out of Maui unscathed? Then you got a Champions Classic, which has Kansas, Kentucky, and Duke versus Michigan State. So what does the top 5 look like at the end of the non-conference schedule? Because right now, I think it's going to be Purdue, and I think it's going to be Michigan State nowhere too.
It's a fantastic question. It's an absolutely incredible question. And I thought about this because I did pre-listen to this one. I wanted to make sure I have a good answer. I totally agree with the 2 that you named. I think that if I have to bet on one team in Maui, I'm going to bet on Purdue. Everybody knows I'm all in on the Boilermakers I just have way too much Purdue stock, but I really do. Like, if everyone's going to say we're worried about Purdue in the NCAA tournament, we also have to admit that Purdue was so dominant in the non-conference last year against a really, really tough schedule. Like, I can't gloss over the fact that they basically destroyed Duke, Gonzaga, and West Virginia back to back to back with a win over Marquette right before that string. Like, that 4-game run was more impressive than anything any other team did last season other than UConn in the NCAA tournament. So I'm buying that Purdue will be really, really good in the non-conference again. So they're in there. Michigan State is also in there because I think Michigan State's going to beat up on a lot of teams in this non-con. Duke and Arizona, very good teams. Baylor is the only real other marquee non-conference game they have this year. Normally they play like 4 or 5 minimum really tough games. They've got 3 this year. And in my opinion, Michigan State's way better than Baylor. If they just split Duke and Arizona, then you end up with 1 loss in the non-con. You're absolutely one of the top 4 teams in the country at that point. Outside of that, man, there's a lot of teams who are going to get beat up here. Like, UConn plays Kansas and Gonzaga along with Indiana in the non-con and North Carolina in the non-con. I was looking at like could Houston make a run? I think their schedule is wide open for it. Like Xavier, Texas A&M are two of the toughest games they've got until they get to conference play. So I'm going to throw Houston in there. And then outside of the schedule that allows teams like Purdue, well, Purdue's schedule's tough, but Michigan State and Houston, I think, are kind of schedule based of why they'll be up there early. I think the other two will just be who are the best teams in the country. So by default, give me Duke, give me Kansas as my AP top 5 at the end of non-conference play. Great question. Another one here.
Hey, Greg, it's Natalie. So I have 2 questions. One, what was your favorite Halloween costume, or what is your favorite Halloween costume like growing up? Also, second question, do you and your wife have like any cute ideas like for a family, Halloween costume, like Wizard of Oz, Monsters Inc., something like that? Let me know. Okay, bye.
Love the question, Natalie. So spirited, by the way. We're almost at Halloween. I can't wait. My first Halloween as a father. My daughter's ready. She's going to be a cow, which I'll be honest with you, I don't love. My wife loves it, and I'm just in supportive father mode for it. We do call her like Murphy Moo. That's a nickname, so I think that's where we're coming from with that. But yeah, my wife was like, well, what are we going to be if she's a cow? And I was like, are we also going to be cows, or are we supposed to be like farmers? Like, I don't know. It feels iffy to me. I have 2 sister-in-laws. I was an only child growing up, but I have 2 sister-in-laws that all have young toddler-aged kids. And one of the families is going to do Monsters Inc., as you just said. They've got 3 daughters now, and I think they've got like Boo, Randall, and Mike Wazowski as the 3. And I don't know what mom and dad are being, but that's probably the best one that I can think of. And then growing up, I was never into scary costumes. That probably doesn't surprise anybody out there, but I was never like, I don't know, like putting a Scream mask on or going to like haunted house level costumes. I was more of going for humor or just something kind of out there. I think I was Elvis for like 3 years in a row from like 4th through 7th grade. And it was really easy. Just throw a wig on and I always thought it was funny to get the candy while trick-or-treating and then hit them with like a thank you very much. Like, it was a horrible impression, by the way. But now my go-to, I do have one costume as an adult that I wear that's just obnoxious. It's just a huge box of crayons. So for the last 10 years back when I was in like corporate marketing jobs still, anytime there was a Halloween party, I would just be a massive box of crayons, and that costume never changed. Still a great costume. Maybe I'll wear that while my daughter's a cow, and everyone will be very confused. Another one here.
Hey, Greg, it's Melba. My question for you is, which team this season do you think is going to go the longest before they take their first loss? So for reference, last year, New Mexico went 14-0 before they took their first loss on January 4th.
Oh, it's a good question. My gut wanted to say Florida Atlantic at first when I read this or when I heard this last night. And I didn't realize how good Florida Atlantic's schedule is. Like they bulked up this non-conference a good amount. I knew they had to play Illinois. I actually think Florida Atlantic can win that game, but they've also got Arizona on a neutral, and a bunch of other like top 100-ish teams like Charleston and Liberty, Loyola's who they opened the season with. Like they're going to stumble somewhere there. So I really do. I think it's going to be someone we don't expect. Like I don't think one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country is going to start out on this dominant tear this season. Man, it's probably another mid-major. It's probably like a New Mexico again. But for the sake of just going with a team I feel pretty confident in, I'm going to go with St. Mary's. I'm going to go with St. Mary's. Their toughest non-conference game is San Diego State on a neutral. And I think St. Mary's is a better team than San Diego State this year. If they get through that, they don't play another top 50 Ken Pom team the rest of the way until they get to Gonzaga in February. So I think St. Mary's is going to be really, really good this year. I think we could see like just a wins-loss record that we normally see from Gonzaga if they can take care of business in the non-con. But I love me some Aiden Mahaney. I think he can do that. So that's my answer, Melba. Very, very good question. Scrolling down here, I think we have just one more to wrap the show here. And it's a great person to end the show with.
Hey, Greg, it's Ulamog. I got to know if Michigan State's being haunted by the ghost of Liz Frank. It feels like every year there's one or two major foot injuries. Is this something specific to Michigan State? Or I'm just not noticing these issues at other schools? Thanks.
So it definitely is happening a lot at Michigan State. And for anyone who doesn't understand, Liz Frank, aka the Liz Frank injury. I don't know what a Liz Frank even is, but I know it's like the specific injury that keeps putting Michigan State players in walking boots. And it's happening a lot at Michigan State for sure. I don't think there's anything tangible to point to that like we can say Michigan State is doing wrong that leads to this. I think it just happens a lot. But I will throw out like I think there is an element of a curse to this. And people aren't going to like this, but there was a very specific moment in 2015. I've pulled up the article so I can actually quote him. Karis LeVert suffered a season-ending walking boot type injury for Michigan that season. And it was right before Michigan was going to play Michigan State. And Tom Izzo said, quote, when you see a thing like LeVert, and here's where I have changed. In the last 3 or 4 years, I'm in my basement. When the best player on somebody else's team went down, I'm not different than a fan. Hell, I'm happy as hell. And then he went on to say, what makes me sad, and this is what I think we really have to look into, is that this is an overuse injury. This was not an injury because something happened. This was an overused, overworked injury. Kind of blaming John Beilein for a Karis LeVert injury. I never really liked that. And maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I know Michigan fans have always like carried a little grudge of like, you're really like throwing the staff under the bus for the way they handled Karis LeVert and led to this. Well, it seems like every single year since that curse in 2015, Michigan State has had at least one player in a walking boot. And I would not say that it's due to overuse. I would say that's just an unfortunate freak thing that keeps occurring. So, all right. Well, that was kind of a somber note to end this. But Ulamog, shout out to you. Shout out to everybody who participated in this. I threw this out to the Discord yesterday, not knowing if people would want to do this or not. I know it's a big thing for, people don't necessarily want to share their voice and have that heard. But we're building something special with the Sleepers community. I believe that heart and soul wise. I'm having a blast with it. And you guys just made this show great today. You put in the effort. And hopefully Cart's having a great vacation. We got to get this man back well rested, better than ever to keep this rolling as we get into the season. But I think it speaks very highly to everybody who watches the show on a regular basis and cares about Sleepers that we were able to do a show without Carter today that I think turned out pretty well and was fun for everybody, hopefully. So appreciate everybody's involvement. I guess I got to give the plug. Join the Discord. It's $9.99 a month. There's a link in the description of this video. And we also had a couple signups as well. Maybe it was just one sign up. It was Chris, I believe, who said he was new to the Discord. He gave a great comment that, Chris, I promise you, we're going to read that the first episode that Carter Elliott is back, my friend. So appreciate everybody. Thank you to Eli, Tristan, and Riley as well for making appearances in the Carter Elliott roast. And thank you to the big fella himself, Carter Elliott. We'll see you when you return, my friend. Everybody have a fantastic day. I think the Sleepers podcast will be back on Friday. If not, I can't roast him again. That's too harsh on back-to-back days. Have a great Thursday, everybody. We'll see you soon.